Welcome, everyone. I am Beyza, research scientist at Cohere for AI. I am very excited to introduce our guest today, Zeynep Akata. Zeynep is a distinguished professor of computer science at the Technical University of Munich and the director of the Institute for Explainable Machine Learning at Helmholtz, Munich. She has held various academic positions, including postdoctoral researcher at the Max Planck Institute, University of California, Berkeley, assistant professor at the University of Amsterdam, and professor at the University of Tübingen before moving to Munich this year. During our conversation today, we will learn more about Zeynep's career journey. Please feel free to drop questions in the Q&A. Throughout our conversation, and I will be sure to give some time at the end of those. Zeynep, very excited to have you here today, and welcome.
Thank you. I'm also very excited and happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to start with our classical question to kick off. How did you first get into machine learning and computer vision research? And what was the initial topic you worked on?
I think that was during my master's, when I was writing my master's thesis. I studied media informatics in Bonn, and I wanted to do my thesis on computer vision and machine learning, and that's how I started actually. I did. My thesis was on non-negative matrix factorization for segmentation and label prediction. And while I was trying to search for ways in which I could solve this problem, I found, so it diverged from there actually. I found a summer school in India, and I went there, and then I talked to my future PhD advisor, and I got a PhD position there, and so on. Basically, it's a long journey. I think back at
by the way, I didn't know that you also worked on non-negative tensor matrix factorization as the initial topic, because it was the topic that I also started machine learning with.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. For another problem, it was recommender system, but it was the same. So,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Yeah. Very interesting.
So,
Afterwards, I diverged from it, so I didn't get back to it. But I remember very fondly that I really enjoyed the topic.
yeah, it was fun topic. I agree.
Yeah.
And at that time, deep learning was not that popular. It was not even a thing because we are talking about 10, 11 years ago, maybe even more than that.
Yeah.
And I want to ask, how did the deep learning revolution affect your research focus?
Yeah, so when I started my PhD, we were still trying to build very high-dimensional vectors to represent images, and with millions of images. And so I did my PhD on large-scale image classification. And I started in 2011. So like a year before the ImageNet paper, the AlexNet paper came out. And so the challenges were different at the time. But once we have recognized the paradigm shift, the first thing that I tried to do was to try to make use of what I had learned still, despite the whole paradigm shift. And I figured that at least in the beginning, the models weren't so good at recognizing fine-grained classification problems like different species of birds and so on. And that's where I focused towards the second half of my PhD, and also zero-shot learning. My research on zero-shot learning started after the deep learning revolution, actually. I think in a way, if the paradigm shift didn't happen, I would have still continued to work on these kind of handcrafted feature engineering for image classification. And in the hindsight, I'm glad it happened. So I was able to move towards zero-shot learning and fine-grained classification, which I was very happy to work on afterwards.
Yeah, I agree. I remember that we were doing that feature extractions and segmentations with images.
Yes,
It was difficult. Yeah, I also want to ask that you are recognized as one of the pioneers in the field of explainable machine learning and established one of the first labs dedicated to this research. Can you share the story behind how you came up with the idea to focus on explainability in AI and what motivated you to establish this lab?
So I mentioned that I worked on zero-shot learning and fine-grained classification. And so I was trying to find, so I was very interested in using images and some other side information as a supporting mechanism for doing better image classification. And initially I used attributes. Those are visually discriminative properties of objects that usually comes from human experts, and it requires a lot of annotation effort and expertise, so it is quite costly. So with a collaborator of mine, Scott Reed, who was then a PhD student in Michigan, and I was a postdoc at Max Planck. So we started collaborating, and we thought, why not, instead of attributes, we use sentences. And we thought, okay, for these fine-grained data sets, there aren't so many data sets with sentences, so we should collect them. And we asked Amazon Mechanical Turk kind of users, novice users, to give us whatever they thought was interesting about these birds. And so once we looked at these sentences, nowadays this data set is being used quite frequently, but in the beginning, our aim was to solve zero-shot learning. And then we looked at these sentences, and they turned out to be quite class-specific. And then that gave us the kind of inspiration to try to use them to explain classification decisions. So come up with sentences that describe the image, but not everything about the image or everything about the bird, but class-specific properties of the birds. And that somehow happened when I talked to Trevor Darrell at a conference, one of the ICCBs. And so I told him that I have this data set and I have this idea, but I need to work with somebody who is an expert in vision language research. And he said, okay, let's try it. So for almost a year, we worked together remotely when I was still at Max Planck. And then he invited me to do a postdoc with him. And there with Lisa Hendricks, we did this explainable machine learning or generating visual explanations line of work. And that became quite popular. And also I moved to Amsterdam in the meantime, and I was looking for ways to build my own research group. Of course, having your own funding helps. So I was thinking about submitting a proposal to ERC, and I was looking for topics. And naturally, this explainable machine learning emerged as a topic for me. It was a very hot and unknown area, basically. And the topic of my ERC grant determined the topic of my group afterwards, or the title of my group. That's how it happened.
That's nice. Actually, I also wanted to ask that. So you have received numerous awards, including ERC and ECVA Young Researcher Award and German Pattern Recognition Award, numerous of them. I can't count them all here, but so many of them. And I want to ask, how have these recognitions impacted your career and research? We learned one of them, but do you have more examples?
So of course, with more funding, one can build a larger group, which means having more students, more postdocs. So one advantage of this is to be able to explore different topics and take more risks in a way. But one disadvantage of it is, of course, you have many more responsibilities. Not every PhD goes as planned. Not everybody is happy while they are. I mean, I can relate. We have all been there. So all of these social aspects of having responsibilities is sometimes difficult, but of course, I would say all in all, the sum is positive. I'm glad that all these wonderful things happened to me, and now I have a I would say medium-sized group, and I'm blessed. Basically, I can explore different things. I can meet many people, and I can influence lives of others. So I'm in general very happy about all that.
Yeah, glad to hear this. And what are your current responsibilities and also challenges?
So after I moved to Munich, now I have kind of two jobs at the same time. I'm a professor at the Technical University of Munich, but I'm also a director at Helmholtz Munich. So I try to balance the two. My main kind of employer is Helmholtz, of course, but I get to supervise PhD students, and I'm also a civil servant in Germany through TUM. And although I don't need to teach, this position doesn't come with teaching load. I try to do some teaching to get to know master students, for example. But I get help for that. Our PhD students help. And then I have a group of PhD students and postdocs who I try to meet regularly every week. So that fills up much of my time. And then there are other responsibilities, like sometimes I'm part of PhD defense committees, sometimes I have to organize things, workshops, and then funding, proposal writing, or proposal writing for compute, and so on. These kind
Yeah,
of challenges exist in academia.
right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the probably main reason that many people are actually staying a bit far from the academia, because it's really a big challenge. And I
Yes.
appreciate there are also some brave people like you who are still fighting with those challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, in a way, while trying to tackle challenges, you also learn a lot. And the aspect that I really love most about my job is the fact that you can be many things. So if you want, you can be a teacher full time. If you want, you can be a researcher full time. If you want, you can, I don't know, focus on compute and making things better, or you can organize conferences and so on. So that aspect is interesting. And for people who maybe are not very decided on what is next for them, it could be a good option, because you don't have to choose one thing. You can be many things.
If you can, because it's a challenge. So I want to get back to your research a little bit more. So what is interpretability, considering there is no consensus on its exact description, as far as I know,
Yes,
at least? So maybe
yes,
you
yes, yes.
can
You
tell
are very,
us
very
more
much right.
about that. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So by now I have seen many different definitions of interpretability, but maybe one that we thought about, that we found kind of interesting and covering many aspects of at least computer vision based interpretability is maybe there are two different ways of thinking about it. One way is you might want to try to understand the exact thought process of the model that you are working with. So mechanistic interpretability or introspection, we could call it. So that reveals the thought process of the machine. And it doesn't necessarily need to be user-friendly, because that is not the aim. But the second type of interpretability is more post hoc interpretability, where you are not necessarily trying to explain the decision maker's thought process, but you are trying to make sense of the connection between the input and output, and in a way that is consistent for every kind of input that this model is going to receive. This is in a way similar to how humans explain their decisions. We have no access to our own internal thought process, but we can, when it is asked, we can explain why we came up with a certain decision. No one knows if this is correct, but in a way, based on the question answers, maybe a rolling base of question answers, one can decide whether to trust that decision maker or not. And I believe both of these types of explanations are very important, but one doesn't need to choose one over the other.
Right. Okay, yeah, no, yeah, I'm still thinking about that, what you're telling, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. And it was really good definition. I think it was useful for everyone here to better understand what is interpretability in that context. I also know that and follow that you have made significant contributions to multimodal learning. Even before that CLIP model and similar models to CLIP. Can you explain the importance of this approach and some of the breakthroughs you have achieved in this area?
So since almost the beginning, the question that interested me the most was, how can we connect two different, very related modalities with each other and express ourselves in a better way? So maybe inspired from how we observe the world and how we try to make sense of it and how we attach meaning to concepts around us. I thought giving that ability to the models that we are working with is one of the most interesting research topics. And so be it assigning properties, like finding out about these properties that represent an object, that make an object that object, and naming it afterwards. Or be it describing the scene that with fluent natural language, this or maybe even make use of audio or speech, add that into the mix. It's very, very interesting for me. At the moment, I can't really say that I have made one breakthrough that is the most impactful in my career, or that still determines my thought process. But maybe some of the things were these text-to-image generation, using these very detailed sentences that we had collected, was one of the first papers that came out in that domain. And then attribute-based image classification using these early CLIP-like models was another one that I'm quite proud of, I would say, especially the illustration that I had made for that paper.
I remember that one. Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, actually, this is interesting. Maybe we are diverging a bit from the topic, but I find it very, very important to spend time on creating nice illustrations for papers, where so the picture contains as much information as possible about, but not with all the details, a summary of the information about the paper, so that people don't need to even read the paper to understand what it is about. Something that I struggle with sometimes to teach the importance to my own team members.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, actually. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And I totally agree, but I have no ability to actually create that type of nice pictures that explains the whole workflow of the algorithm and the paper. But I really respect the people who can do it well. I want to get one question from the audience. So they ask, what is the difference between explainable AI and interpretable AI?
I would say it is the same thing. To be honest, I can't, to me, it's the same thing, because explainability is directly related to interpretability. You are trying to explain the decision that is made by either someone else or by a model to either yourself or to the communication partner. And maybe if I squeeze my eyes and try to find a difference, I would say maybe interpretability is more passive and explainability is a little bit more active. So explainability requires some form of communication, and we use explanations to communicate our decisions to people. Whereas interpretability could be showing, as I mentioned, the thought process of the machine, or for example, highlighting the most important aspects of the input. But that still goes a little bit towards communication, because then one produces such output for explaining the decision to another user.
Okay, if someone asks me after that, I will also give that answer. Explainability is more active.
I
Yeah.
don't know if somebody would
I like it.
disagree. I would be happy to discuss.
Yeah, nice. So what is your vision for the future of AI, particularly in the context of explainable and multimodal AI? Maybe it's very,
Future.
I mean, wide question that, I mean, the answer could be really big, but maybe
Yes.
in summary, you can tell us what you think about that.
Indeed, it's one of the most difficult questions to answer, because simply because the future is like a very relative concept, and the future goes so fast in our current
Right.
the AI continuing revolution or the progress. So, but we are often asked this question when we, for example, for faculty interviews, what is your 5-year plan? What are you going to do in 5 years? Where do you want your group to go, and so on? And I would say, although we have made a lot of, so as a collective, we have made a lot of progress in vision and language research, multimodal research, we still are mainly focusing on natural images, so images of our world around us. And this is certainly interesting, and it is not solved, this the diversity of the problems that we have around us. I think explainability still has room for improvement for even natural images. But another aspect that I think is very important, where still a lot of progress is necessary for the systems to be really usable, is medicine, medical diagnosis, and maybe also biology. So more fundamental society relevant topics. How can AI build solutions for such tasks where the task is not about, or what to see is not natural images, or maybe satellite imagery and so on, climate change, predictions about what is going to happen in 10 years from now. So earthquake prediction. So all of these different topics that still have not made use of the current progress of machine learning, as far as I know. There I would think much is to be expected.
Yeah, I agree. I also don't know any research mainly focuses on those problems, but probably it will be very critical and important in the upcoming years. So how do you see the role of AI evolving in addressing societal challenges? What's the role of reliable machine learning studies for that?
So one aspect, when you ask the question, the first thing that came to my mind is these fairness and bias related research. So now, of course, foundational models are trained with internet data, and internet is not always the prettiest place to to collect information from. And models are being affected from all sorts of biases that were in the data itself. So nevertheless, small children are going to maybe are already using these systems. So how can we make them keep their accuracy, but keep in mind that these are important criteria to maybe consider while building systems. So we are aiming for progress and accuracy and bigger models and better models for certain tasks at the moment. But it's important to also remember how these technologies are going to affect children or hiring decisions and so on. And so I find this research on fairness and very, very interesting and timely and useful.
Okay, yeah. I also agree to that. So when I was checking your background and preparing your bio, I noticed that you moved so much. So what triggered each move?
Yes, so it was mostly because I found a better opportunity elsewhere, and I wanted to take that. Sometimes you just need to seize the opportunity, basically. But also, I wanted to travel to different places. I wanted to be exposed to different cultures and maybe learn different languages and get to know different ways of doing research, basically. So I haven't stayed in a place for more than 4 years in my last 15 years or so. So I really moved a lot. But let's see how long I stay in Munich. So far, I really like it, and hopefully it will be longer than 4 years this time.
Okay, one thing caught my attention, which is learning different languages. Maybe I will ask it in private how I can learn German, finally.
I don't claim that I succeeded at it, but I attempted it.
Yeah, okay. But still, I know that you're much better than I am. So anyway, what advice would you give to young researchers aspiring to achieve similar recognition as you achieved in their fields?
Yes. So I think one superpower that I have is that I'm very hardworking. I can't claim that I'm very, very smart, but I can claim that I'm very hardworking. So I think this is the most important thing, basically. And being able to be persistent and focused, sometimes it requires giving up on certain things in life, but it depends a bit on what makes people happy in the end. So in my case, for example, I come from Turkey, and I knew that I wanted to, after I moved to Germany, I wanted to live in Europe. And I thought, so I seeked for a lot of advice. I talked to always my supervisors to find out, in their view, what I needed to do to achieve the dreams that I had. And everybody had some advice to give, and many of these were very useful in the end. So I would say it is good to have goals, have dreams, and it is important to be able to draw a roadmap as much as possible and try to stick with it, basically. In my case, I thought I would like to become a professor as quickly as possible. So I didn't worry about, for example, becoming a German citizen as soon as possible. So if that is the goal, then it's better to stay in the one place that you are and try to achieve that. And that means maybe it is going to go a little bit slower, the career. But if the aim is to have a permanent position as soon as possible, I think one thing that certainly helps is to move, because it is not easy to settle down in a place. If you have managed to do that, and if you show that you can keep a good track record despite all the changes that you had to encounter, this is appreciated, as far as I know, everywhere in the world. But of course, it might not be. So it depends a bit on the goal in the end. And I had to, for example, wait for a long time to plan or think about a family. And this is something that, you can't keep in the background for so long as a woman either. So this sometimes takes the precedent, and this is totally understandable and of course acceptable.
Yeah, I have a very related question to that. But first, yeah, two things really caught my attention in your suggestions. One thing is, I think you need to be responsive and open to the feedback. And you said you talk to your supervisors about how you can reach out to goal. I think that's really, really so important. If someone young would come and ask me what you suggest, I would definitely tell them to ask for feedback. And be responsive to that. And the other one is being hardworking. But I can claim that you are really so smart, Zeynep. Shouldn't underestimate that.
I have met so many more smarter people in my life.
Okay, one audience question. Which place you liked most?
Oh, this is a very difficult one too.
Very difficult. I know you can, I don't know, skip that or have an
No, it's
answer.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as a city, I think I really, really love Amsterdam. I liked it mainly because, it's a really tiny, concentrated, small city,
Mhm.
and you can reach everywhere by bike. And I really enjoyed my bike rides in the morning, for example, or whenever I needed to go somewhere, being able to bike. That I really liked. But of course, Tübingen was great if you want to be in a place where you are surrounded by history, and also the concentration of talent and like machine learning researchers is very, very dense in Tübingen. In Munich, for example, I know that there are many, many people, but just the city is much more spread around, much bigger. So it's not very easy to kind of get into contact with people. But there are other aspects. I love the museums here, for example, the art museums and all the collection, that all the paintings that you can stare at the whole day and so on. So
Yeah.
it depends a bit. I think everywhere. Turkey is amazing in many different ways. Yeah, France also. The food is the best there, I would say.
If you're not vegetarian.
Yes, that is true.
Okay, so balancing a demanding career with personal life can be challenging. You also mentioned it a little bit. And how do you manage to maintain this balance?
I hope that I manage it. I'm not very sure, but so one kind of advantage of being in my position, being able to choose the times that to devote to work and to the family, up to some extent, of course, allows me, for example, to start the day a little bit earlier. When so I have a 2.5-year-old, and so we bring him to the kita, to the nursery, and then immediately we go to work. And my husband is a researcher too, so I have support. I have somebody who understands how it is like. And then I need to be very organized. I can't diverge from my plan of the day, because if I do, then something has to suffer. And so I finish my day most often at 4 p.m. That's when we need to start going to pick up our son from the kita. Sometimes, of course, we work in the weekends, sometimes in the evenings, but I try not to work when he wants to play, basically. It's because I know that time goes very fast for young children, and we need to try to find a way to be there for them. It's our decision to have them, not theirs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, what you tell is really inspiring for, I hope, many people. And yeah, another question is, you have mentored many students and young researchers. What do you find most rewarding about that?
First of all, meeting young people keeps me young, I think. That is the most rewarding part. So being surrounded by young people is I really like. So I'm not sure if I take more out of this interaction or them, but what I always try to do is to try to remember how it was like being in their place, and try to give examples from my own experiences when I receive a question that I can answer that way. I try to be present and be approachable, reachable. Sometimes being friendly is mistaken for being non-professional. I have also seen that, but that's okay. I think, yeah, I think it's people can understand the difference between friendly, helpful, and serious friendly also.
Hopefully.
And
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I hope I'm helpful for people. No one knows. So,
Yeah, I see some questions in the Q&A. So commonly, they want to work with you, and they're asking, what do you look for in a young researcher, and what you are looking for from in the applicants.
okay. Yes, so nowadays I'm fortunate that I'm not taking I'm in a position where I can ask feedback from my group members, and we take decisions all together. Basically, I don't have to be the only one to make such a decision. So what we do is we usually accept applications for PhD, for example, through the ELIS PhD program, and then typically there is a pre-filtering process based on, I don't know what kind of a criteria, but there's a pre-filtering process. And afterwards, we receive applicants who apply for our chair or our group. And among those, we go through everyone who applied to us and then try to make a short list of maybe 20 people who we talk to. And then we invite to give talks in our group as sub-selection of these, and then we move on like that. Usually the criteria that we look at, it's very difficult to say a criteria that could fit everyone, but one thing is whether the person has done research previously. If that research is in line with what we are interested in, then if they have maybe experience in being in the environment that we are. And then, I don't know, diversity is one criteria always. We look for diverse applications. And also personal fit is very important. Of course, we talk to them and we try to see if they are going to be friendly member of our group, because we work together very often. We have internal collaborations in the group, and I think a person who would fit to that environment is very important for us. That's why I ask all the group members to talk to the candidates. For postdocs, we usually have specific calls for postdocs, but sometimes, of course, you know, if there's some really exceptional candidates, I also evaluate them outside of the calls. And again, the research fit is probably the most important thing, and being able to supervise students, having previously done any, I don't know, participated in teaching or organizational activities, reviewing. Those are some of the criteria we look at.
Okay. Where do you find inspiration for your research? Are there any particular books, papers, experiences that have significantly influenced your work?
I think in the very beginning, as a PhD student, it was mostly either following the advice of my supervisors who had some ideas already for me to work on. I started that way. I diverged from some of these topics from my own curiosity, trying to solve some of the problems, introduced me to some other things. Nowadays, of course, I'm in a position where I can explore many different things. And typically, I leave the decision of which research to work on to the PhD students and postdocs. So they are, I feel like they are much more up to date about the current progress of AI research than me. So we start, usually they come up with an idea and we talk about it, and I sometimes have concrete suggestions to give. Sometimes I ask questions and then they figure the answers out themselves, basically. But it is like a relatively relaxed process. But of course, there is pressure to publish always. So we try to come up with topics which we can hopefully work on for not only for the next deadline, but for a little longer term.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some of the key goals you hope to achieve with your research in the coming years? It's not secret.
No.
Yeah.
I can't say I would like to solve this problem now, because I don't have that. But with my research, I hope to one day make a difference for the whole society. It could be, now that I'm a part of Helmholtz in Munich, which focuses on health and environmental health. This could be one direction which I might move towards, but that requires me to kind of understand the data, the challenges, the different types of applications that are still relevant and will be relevant for many years to come, which is not very easy to make that switch actually. But I would be very happy. So when the time comes to retire, if I have managed to create or help create a system that could help people, I would be happy, I think.
Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah. I have the same goal. And I also want to ask that how do you use AI in your daily life? AI is not there yet, we know it, but still it's helpful in some tasks. And are there any AI-powered apps or devices that you find particularly useful?
Yeah, I mean, I use ChatGPT often, and mainly to, I don't know, polish some letter that I wrote for example, a recommendation letter or something. Or sometimes I ask advice, like to bounce ideas, not necessarily scientific advice, but life advice. And I find it very useful to sometimes, just discuss with an AI agent, knowing that, or hoping that it won't judge you.
Yeah, sometimes it's just fun for me to chat with an LLM actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I enjoy it.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, I'm not a kind of person who plays computer games a lot, or at all. So I can't say anything about entertainment right now, but mostly about, I guess, asking for advice and also polishing writing.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite conference or event that you look forward to attend each year?
Yes, actually, unfortunately, I'm not able to go to the conferences that I love so frequently anymore. I think I will have to like reserve these couple of years for the family mostly. But if I were free to choose, I really liked attending NeurIPS. Or I thought it's also a very interesting conference because of the diversity in topics that I could discover. It is so I find that both of these venues are not really machine learning specific or computer vision specific, but somewhere in the middle, or medical imaging or environmental research. You can find many different interesting papers which I liked walking around. Now my access to information is mostly my students actually. They bring papers and then we read them, and they go to conferences and they tell me what they have seen.
Right,
Yes.
but well, back then when I first attended NeurIPS, maybe there were 2,000 attendees, but now it is 12,000. At least
Yes.
maybe 2 years ago it was 12,000. I can't follow it anymore. And also the number of accepted papers increased a lot, and it's really hard to follow. So I think, yeah,
Yes.
it's also about that. There are so many papers around, and it's really almost impossible to follow all those papers.
Yes, actually, I was one of the program chairs for CVPR this year, and I think very soon the submission platforms are going to hit their capacities, and very soon also the available venues to present research is going to hit the capacities. This came up in some of our discussions when we were discussing with the organizers, the venue organizers, that this year we are safe. We have multiple places to choose from. But next year, maybe this is not going to be the case anymore. And this is, I mean, of course, there is no solution at the moment. Nobody has come up with a good solution to this problem. But yeah, I guess we will have to come up with a solution at some point.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's a question to the community, which needs to be resolved in near future, because yeah, it's getting out of control almost. I also agree. Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe one of the closing questions, if you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to younger self at the start of your career, what would it be?
I guess I would say you don't need to doubt yourself so much. Things are going to be fine. And fine can mean many different things. There are many different ways in which things will be fine. So I would say just trust yourself, work hard, and one of the possible paths in front of you are going to be just fine. And that's good. That's good enough.
Yeah, there are claps. I also got emotional, but it was great answer. Maybe some related question. We know that research is tough at times, and sometimes your hypothesis doesn't work and you only can learn it after months of work. Or everyone has ups and downs in their lives. What was the most challenging period or thing in your career? And do you remember how you overcome it?
I think that my master period was one of the most challenging periods for me, because it was the first time I had left home. And I was all alone. I felt like in the world I'm all alone now. I have to manage my own money. I have to go shopping. I have to buy food, and also get good grades from my lectures and so on. And I found it very different from my bachelor's studies, and I struggled a lot. I remember, for the first time I failed a lecture. I was a master's student and I didn't know how to recover from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the end it works out, but and then PhD was also very, very stressful and very difficult. I had a scholarship that lasted for 3 years and it could not be extended. So I had to find a way to publish 3 papers in 3 years and graduate. So you have to work around with a lot of uncertainties. So you learn to maybe be resistant towards all the uncertainties in your life, and you learn to focus on the one thing that you need to work on at the moment and hope for the rest of the things to sort it themselves out.
Yeah.
After PhD, things got much better, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, nice. I think, yeah, we can close our chat here. It was really lovely chat. Thank you so much, Zeynep, for accepting our invitation, and thanks everyone for attending. Yeah.
Thank you from my side too. It was very nice to chat with you, this time in English, Beyza.
Yeah, maybe as a side note, Zeynep is my good friend and we know each other for more than 10 years, but we have never chatted in English. It was a good experience for me.
Yes. Thank you for inviting
Yeah.
me again. And thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.